So this is going to be a video for you if you're somebody who's very empathetic, very empathic, somebody who is spiritually connected, somebody who's very sensitive, somebody who feels your feelings very deeply. If you're somebody who likes to take a lot of vitamin supplements and do meditation and release work and connect to your higher power and move through that action and believe in the work that you're doing, if you're somebody like that, I want to make a video for you. And I'm sitting here in Austin, Texas, right here in Congress, right here in Austin. Just come off of teaching for about 5 days straight. And this is a topic that actually came up for one of my students who actually, I could tell, is very spiritually connected, very empathic, and would actually cry a lot. And he really, really, really felt his feelings. And I want to talk to you, I spoke with him about it, and I want to actually talk to you about it now, and I want to share this lesson with you. So the first thing that I want to explain is that people don't get you. They just don't get it. And if they knew what you knew, they would think completely different of you. And I understand that, okay? Owen understands, okay? I get it. And what I'm going to explain is what they don't get so that you can, so I can kind of pace you and lead you here. I want to explain to you what they don't get about you. And there's going to be a whole bunch that I don't say. But I want to start with explaining that so that you understand that when I give you some advice going forward, you know that I understand. The thing that people who are not empathic don't get is that when you are connected to your purpose, you will have so much motivation that you will work 10 times harder. When you are connected to a flow state, you will not create a chaotic hell out of your life, because what people who are not empathetic don't understand is that they're creating something called self-generated resistance. They're in this kind of negative state, and they're in this flurry of action. But with every action they take, they're creating negative karma, which then shoots back at them. They're creating a whole bunch of self-generated resistance. Like they're taking all this action, but they're making their own resistance. Maybe they're like, okay, let's get something done. They get all wound up, and then they wind up yelling at somebody. But then yelling at that person actually winds up creating more resistance. So now they're further behind the 8 ball, and they have to get even more done. It's called self-generated resistance. So their actions, because their actions aren't coming from a connected place, are creating their own resistance within themselves, self-generated resistance. They're adding negativity to the world, which is then creating a negative karmic debt on them. And what winds up happening when you're in that kind of disconnected state is often you're actually falling prey to negative self-fulfilling prophecies. So when you're a super positive person, you wind up creating positive self-fulfilling prophecies. You wind up being nicer to people. You wind up being more positive. You see more opportunities. More people want to be friendly with you. When you're not connected, when you're not empathetic, when you're disconnected spiritually, you wind up creating all these negative self-fulfilling prophecies. You think the world is bad. You're jealous of people. You're angry at people. And then the world actually becomes a mirror right back to you. So you've got to be connected. Lastly, and I think this is very, very important, is also that when you're positive and spiritually connected, it opens up your mind to incredible opportunities that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And people who don't have that spiritual connection, they don't get that. And so they're basically walking through life, creating negative fulfilling prophecies everywhere, adding self-generated resistance with everything they do, having to force themselves because they don't even believe in what they're doing, so they're having to work much, much harder. They're creating negative outcomes and adding negative karma into the world. Even if you're someone who's Christian, you can just understand the principle of karma. If you're not into the whole Eastern philosophy thing, actually that's fantastic, but I'm just making the point that anybody can understand the general idea of karma. Okay, so they're adding all this negativity. They're not able to see different opportunities in front of them. And then they find their sense of self in the material. They find their sense of self in the ego. And in Eastern philosophy, they're basically lost in what's called Maya. They're lost in an illusion. And their reality is very, very contracted and very, very small. So when you understand that, if you're somebody who's highly sensitive, and you have a good body awareness and a good energetic awareness, and you see people that are just trying to find themselves in hustling and grinding, and maybe they're a little bit more results oriented. And you're looking at them and you're saying, they're blind. They don't get it. They don't get me. There's not a lot for me in listening to them, or maybe you can get something out of it, but they're on the wrong path. And frankly, they are in this flurry of action that is leading on a pathway straight to hell. And so what you want to do is you want to learn from people who will help you to connect, who will help you to broaden your empathy for others, people who will strengthen that spiritual connection, help you to find your purpose, help you to raise your vibration, and help you to get on that level where you can exist in a state of flow. Life moves with ease, and as you're moving, you're connected to your purpose, you're connected to your higher power, you're creating self-fulfilling prophecies, you're seeing opportunities, you're moving with flow, you're loving your life, you're trying to get connected to that, and that's where your focus is. So that's what people don't get. That's what they don't understand when they look at you. And it's sad. and they're lost in their own kind of house of mirrors and delusions. They don't get it, and frankly, they're probably not gonna get it because they have a parasite living on their brain that they can't see, and that parasite wants to survive and is blocking them off from even seeing what we're talking about here. They've already clicked off this video, I can promise you, or it's just making them angry, and they're just watching it for rage bait. So that being the case, I've tried to pace you here to show you that I've studied this. I'm recording this in 2022. I've been studying this heavily since around 2006. As a part of what we do trauma release offerings, we do meditation coachings, and we do a ton of stuff on how we create our own reality. We go very, very deep. I've taken courses with the best. I do the work myself. I've gone deep. So that's what I have to say there. But what I want to show you here is the other side of the coin, because what I want to show you is, in the same way that you can see hustlers and grinders messing up, I want to show you the messed up stuff that they see in you. So this is kind of funny, this topic that we've broken into, because I found that I get along with a broad range of people, but I also frustrate a broad range of people. I get along with the spiritual crowd, but then they see me focusing on my business and they see me talking about things like sales and marketing, and they get angry because they think that I've gone into the Maya world and the ego world and so on and so forth. And then I have friends that are very, very rich. I hang out with often some of the richest people in the world, and they get mad because I talk about all this woo-woo, airy-fairy stuff. I'm just somebody where I like to get a broad range of influences, and what I'm always trying to do is to test my hypothesis. Now, where did I get this idea? I got it from years and years of studying social skills and going out to bars and clubs and daytime environments to test those. And whenever something was working well and I would start teaching it to people, I would deliberately try doing the opposite and go test that out in the field to see if the opposite could work, and to continually test what it is that I'm doing, and to even pull my paradigm back and see if there's like something else that was driving it, and so on and so forth. I'm just somebody who likes to tinker a lot. I like to question my assumptions. I like to think critically. I'm basically the opposite of what the powers that be want in 2022. They're like, stop thinking for yourself. But you know, I can't help it. It's for some weird reason I like to think for myself, and I hope that you do too. So if you're somebody who likes to think for yourself, what I would challenge you to do is to question your assumptions in this exact same way. The same approach that I've taken in my teachings over several decades, I would encourage you to begin to challenge your assumptions. So if you're somebody who's very spiritual, and you know, you're seeing somebody who's caught just in making money or ego or in a very contracted reality, and they're putting out negative vibes, and they're generating negative karma, they're generating their own self-generated resistance, and they're stuck in this weird, creepy trap that a lot of people who are in the physical get stuck in. If you see that, I would challenge you to learn from them anyway. Now you're like, why would I do that? Why would I go down a paradigm? What I would say to you is, it's not down a paradigm. They're parallel paradigms. The sickest, saddest thing about the spiritual community is that they create all these different spiritual systems to imply that the spiritual person is at the top of the top and the business-oriented person's at the bottom. They're really just, you know, it's like your left leg and your right leg, your left foot, your right foot. They're two halves of the same whole. They're two sides of the same coin. They're equally important. You're here for a spiritual experience, and you're here for a physical one. And if you're putting too much time into one or the other, you're going to go off balance, and that's just a fact. So I would encourage you to look at the other side of the coin and realize that you look as dumb to a business person as they look to you. Okay? You look equally dumb. You're just seeing it through a different lens. I'd say the same thing politically. Whatever political affiliation that you have or had, I'd encourage you to look at the opposite one and spend 50, 60% of your time at least looking at the other side and to understand where they're coming from. All right, so let's continue. So basically, what I would say to you right off the bat is I want you to imagine Master Frodo from the books and movie Lord of the Rings, okay? So think of Master Frodo. He's in he's the Hobbit, he's in the Shire, and he goes on this tremendous adventure. Now, when you think about those three Lord of the Rings movies, right, and accumulating with Master Frodo, he goes up the volcano, they've got to get rid of the ring, and like all these things that happen. What do you think is going to give more spiritual depth to Master Frodo? Do you think that it would have been him staying at home meditating? Would it have been him staying at home doing, things that we teach even here and that we love and believe in, like energetic releases? Would it have been him sitting at home reading The Power of Now? Would it have been him sitting at home reading the Bible? Would it have been him raising his vibration? What would it have been, right? Or do you think that him going on that journey and taking the call to that journey is actually what would create incredible growth? Well, I think the answer is obvious intuitively. I mean, if you can't possibly say you would get more benefit sitting home reading The Power of Now than going on the journey, in the Lord of the Rings, right? And here's why. It's very simple, actually. It's obvious. What I'm saying is obvious. What's going to happen is he's going to be in a state of fear, and he's going to have to learn how to calm himself down. He's going to be in a state where he has many different problems in front of him, and he's going to have to learn to focus his mind. He's going to be in situations that look hopeless, and he's going to have to let go of those situations and just focus on what's within his control. And all of these different things that are going to happen in life are really a part of his spiritual journey, very similar to people who might do a psychedelic odyssey. I don't do those myself, and I'm never going to, but people who do a psychedelic odyssey where it's such a powerful and extreme experience that you actually gain so much knowledge from it. But what you don't realize is the ayahuasca trip is life, right? You're not seeing that. This world is so freaking crazy that as long as you have some sense of spiritual grounding to understand how to process the different experiences that are coming at you, you're in the ayahuasca journey now. And what you're doing, say in a psychedelic trip, is it's almost like the movie Inception, where you're in a dream and then going into a deeper layer of a dream and then coming back to that layer of a dream when you're already in a dream. So it's you're like next Inception level of the dream, right? Which of course can have its benefits. I have many friends who've done that and reported great benefits. I have my own path and great reasons for it. But the point being is that there's so much to be had through that physical journey and putting these things to the test. So what winds up happening is as you go through your journey, if you have a foundation in meditation, if you have a foundation of a spiritual practice, if you have a foundation of trauma release, if you have a foundation of spiritual education, if you have a foundation of basic understanding of, are you generating more negative karma through your actions? I'm using karma very loosely. The term karma I think is pretty cheesy. I'm using it loosely. It's like when I say alpha and then people are like, do you really believe alpha is like the key term? I'm like, it's a half self-parody term that I'm using to just make the point quickly, okay? I'm doing the same thing here with karma. So, if you understand how your actions are maybe appear to be good in the short term, but are actually generating bad vibes that are going to come back at you. If you understand how what you're doing is like, you're so wound up and uptight that you're actually creating layers of resistance that then you have to battle through because you're addicted to them. If you understand how you're creating negative self-fulfilling prophecies, if you understand how your mind is contracted, not seeing the bigger picture of life, if you understand attachments of the ego, if you understand attachments to material, if you get that stuff and you have a strong foundation in that, and you take an adventure in life and you really push yourself and you push yourself to an extreme, that's going to do things for you where it's going to put it to the test. Similar to if you're practicing martial arts, at a certain point, you can't just keep practicing and building the foundation anymore. You've got to go spar. You've got to go put this into all this great stuff that you've been learning. You got to go put that into practice, and you got to go spar. And so, I can tell you myself, I don't know why it had to turn out this way, but I've had a lot of experiences where, I really, really, really believe in my passion, my purpose, and my calling. And I've had a lot of headwinds that you might have seen. A lot of this stuff is very public. I mean, crazy public. You might look, back to like 2014 for some of that, but a lot of other stuff since then too. So I've had my own, severe headwinds that I've dealt with, and things that happen behind the scenes that I don't really talk about on the internet. Not to be secretive, I'm very open, but because when you keep talking about them, A, you start making identity out of problems that have happened, but B, you're encouraging people to keep doing them, which, it just generates more problems. So like I'll write like a big autobiography someday or do like some video by a fire, and I'll like lay down everything I've been through, and you'll just be like, wow. Like, wow, dude, damn, right? And you'll see that. And that's cool. I know people that have cancer. Old friend of mine recently just, I found out he has cancer. Like, stuff happens. I just blew my ACL at skiing, right? That's going to be a 9-month recovery right there. And that injury right there is not even that much compared to what a lot of people deal with. So, everybody's got their problems, right? But what I found was in these headwinds that I had, there would be periods where, for me to keep my vision of what I wanted to build and to be able to fund that, I basically would have to work from when I woke up until when I went to bed, in some cases for several years. It caused me massive cortisol. I'm eating a relatively clean diet. I'm gaining weight from it. I'm missing sleep. I'm under stress that I've never even imagined was possible. I had to hit points where to survive that, my version of fun was I'm working and I'm walking outdoors and I'm just looking at the sky and I'm like, here's my version of a break. Look up at a cloud for 30 seconds. Like I had to train my mind to take leisure and what you could call like spiritual fuel from looking at a cloud. I had to train my mind to gain leisure and spiritual fuel from, looking at a sidewalk and just, looking at the texture of it, or looking at a tree, or just breathing in the air out of my lungs. And I had to learn a lot of stamina and state control. Well, what do we learn in spiritual practice? It's that ability to focus the mind, and that ability to maintain your state, which is a major, major component of spiritual growth, because you're centered from within. And so if you're truly a person who's elevated, you're able to go through a crap storm, and you're able to keep yourself in a good state. It ultimately, when you reach a high pinnacle in your inner growth, you should be at a point where you could have the whole world collapsing on you, and you just keep going and you stay positive. I'm sitting here right now after several days of low sleep, because we run events. We do live events. They're often, these ones were maybe 14 to 18 hours a day, and I've done that for 5 days straight. My voice is thrash. I'm screaming at big crowds. We're doing all these crazy exercises. There's emotional, crazy stuff going on. People are transforming. People are changing their lives. I'm doing that for 5 days, like a marathon. Well, to be good at that practice as a teacher, I've got to be able to be centered in myself and not let that get to me, but I've got to anchor the room as part of my job. Doesn't matter what's happening with my voice. I've got to anchor the room to be in that state. Now, a truly world-class teacher, they have incredible stamina, incredible state control, and they can elevate a room to where the room is like buzzing. It's like you're on some cracked out drug trip, just buzzing out of your mind for 5 days straight. Greats like Anthony Robbins, he's doing 10-day retreats and things like that over the years. I think he blew out his voice permanently like that, to be honest. We share the same coach, Roger Love, and I've heard a lot about it, but, so I try to do it to the point that I can rest this in between. But truly great teachers like Tony, like many others, world-class teachers, they are able to maintain their state and just like a vortex, just walk in the room, boom, everybody's state is up, and hold them there on that pinpoint for 5 or 6 days straight. Do you believe that I would learn more about my inner growth and spiritual growth sitting home meditating versus having to maintain my state as a teacher for 5 days through this psychotic meat grinder? Do you think that I learned more from, about spiritual growth, being in this kind of like navel-gazing lifestyle sitting at home than I would from, the several years that I had to do of work around the clock to save my company and to build the vision that I wanted into the world, despite a lot of the headwinds that we're seeing that, again, I'll save those for the autobiography, and they're totally nuts. Of course, I learned so much more about inner grounding, about spiritual growth from taking on something I'm passionate about that I believe in, right? What was it specifically that I'm passionate about that I believe in? I believe in taking the kind of content that is so high paradigm, so elevating, that it frankly threatens the common thinking person, because it's so beautiful. It's so much about people coming together. It's so much about people being their best, that so much of the low-level paradigms that we have in society, it freaks people out. They'll then, pick it apart, find things that I'm saying as an obvious joke that everybody knows is a joke. They'll cut out of context, they'll clickbait it, they'll either ridicule it or use it to attack it, and then they'll, frankly, what they do in this day and age, in today's world, they attack your vendors and they go after everybody around you, right? But I chose to do that. And I'm passionate about that. And I chose not to back down. And I, in every way, plot forward in every single way that I could. Not a lot of people helped me. People were like, yeah, just keep doing it, and tell me to do things that would just destroy myself. But every single angle that I could to help and to help people to come together, I did to the best of my abilities. I truly did my best. I listened to every feedback and angle that I could. I went and did that. And I wanted to be able to do that with huge seminars. I wanted to be able to do that with beautifully shot videos in the outdoors. I wanted to be able to do that with high production values. I wanted to be able to do that with a team of people. I wanted to be able to do that allowing free events all over the world. I wanted to do that with beautiful free videos that I spent, to be honest, millions of dollars to shoot and release completely for free. I don't even get paid ad revenue on those, believe it or not. They just put ads in front of videos these days. And I wanted to find a way to fund that. I wanted to find a way to fund a business like that and to continue to put out a legacy of some of the best videos ever created. And I wanted to have the time to actually study these paradigms and to learn from the best teachers in the world and to go out and actually practice my craft and sharpen my sword and work with other talented people, work with people like, that are in very high places and bring back this information and bring it to you. That was my vision. I wanted to do that because, frankly, I grew up with a lot of pretty tough stuff. In a really depressed state, almost suicidal a lot, and I wanted to be able to provide the information that I would have wanted. And I wanted to deliver it like in a funny and clever and interesting way, and to sometimes be sarcastic and to be a little off the wall. I wanted to deliver it like that. That was my mission. And I didn't want to back off that. I didn't want to just shoot it on an iPhone. I didn't want to not do free events. I didn't want to not do free video, like not do free content at a high production value. I wanted to do it with the way that I had it as my vision. I could have found ways to cheapen it. I didn't. I kept it going. I kept my employees, didn't have to fire people, and I went and I went and I went and I went. And it was incredibly tough. Well, again, the amount that I had to learn to control my state and to practice all these great spiritual principles that you learn in your studies at home, that put that into practice. And so to think that you're somehow magically going to internalize all of that when you're not picking a purpose and allowing those challenges to come up in front of you, and that you're somehow going to internalize all the spiritual stuff, you're lying to yourself. You're completely lying to yourself. And what you're going to find is a lot of the content that's out there, it'll be created by teachers who teach spiritual growth, but that's most of what they do. And so what happens is that they don't challenge you to take massive action in a significant way. You're just not being challenged to. And what you're also not understanding is that there's a whole other way of seeing things. People that are very, very deep into business see things that is life-affirming, that is expansive, that can add value into the world, that is beautiful and challenging and creates prosperity, and it's amazing. And the problem is that you can get addicted as a self-soothing mechanism just on spiritual work. And so, you see somebody, I've had guys come on my programs for social skills, and I say, like, they've got the inner game of a prince, but results of a pauper. They're beaming with energy, but we go hit up a nightclub, they can't go say hi to somebody, their dating and social life is terrible. And so they feel like they should be manifesting all this great stuff, but the results suck. The problem is you're sitting at home working on raising your vibe and manifesting all that, but you're not realizing that's a major, major piece of the puzzle, but there's this whole other piece of the puzzle in action taking. And so that's why for my entire life, I've been in a high state of action. And I understand what it means when somebody's finding who they are in ego, when they're finding who they are in their finance, when they're finding who they are in, like, hooking up and things like that, and that being your identity. I've been down those paths. I've seen the destruction of them. I've seen this up close in more ways than you could imagine, actually. And I've had clients of mine that are self-made millionaires and billionaires that have been through tremendous turmoil, and some of which are dead, and as a result of them going down wrong paths. It's sad. So I get all that, but I also get that many of my most spiritual and beautiful friends are broke. Many of my most spiritual, internally beautiful friends are hypocritical. They lie to themselves. A lot of my most spiritual friends steal. Funny to think that. You're suppressing a need to receive, and you wind up going and stealing from other people. They don't know how to actually receive in a healthy way, so then that becomes toxic and they wind up stealing. They wind up doing a lot of trash talking. They wind up doing a lot of really hypocritical things. You'll see this in Christian communities as well, a lot of elevating stuff in Christian communities, but you're also gonna see people who are kind of like stuffing their desires and then explodes out in these like ridiculous ways. Somebody who's like, sex is a sin, fornication, next thing you know, they're like, they become an adult film star. They go, get like tag team by a sports team or something in the back of the locker room, right? They go crazy. So a lot of that stuffing is not healthy at all. It involves a lot of stuffing, a lot of disowning of healthy desires. It creates a lot of bitterness, a lot of hypocrisy. And then as a self-soothing mechanism, you just sit there, reading more and more spiritual content, and it becomes a self-soothing thing, like smoking a joint, and so on and so forth. You'll even see a lot of drugs in the spiritual community. People who believe that being high on marijuana is spiritual, or people who believe that being whacked out on some kind of hallucination trip is talking to God. And then they start to, I've had friends that do too many psychedelics and believe that they are literally talking to God all the time. They can't, they're disconnected from the nuanced way that God speaks to us through things that are very, 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 very subtle, and they think that they're just, hey, God, what's up? And God's like, hey, and they're just whacked out. They're hallucinating, and you can see it by the things that they do and the actions that they take, and they wind up alienating a lot of people from themselves, and their brains are basically cooked. They thought that they're elevating themselves spiritually, and their brains are literally cooked. It's like the 80s commercial. This is your brain on drugs, egg on the frying pan, brains cooked, and they're out of there. So there's a lot of that in the spiritual community. And what winds up happening is that you wind up creating all of these different criteria that you think that you need in order to take action, right? You start to think like it takes a village. Like, I have to have my supplements. I have to do my meditation. I have to be on my purpose. I have to, be in a high vibe state. I have to be in state. I have to, I have to this, I have to that, I have to this, I have to that. And ultimately, who does that enrich? Perhaps people that are teaching that stuff could be myself included, even though I teach so much on taking action. But the point is that it's not enriching you. It's just not. And it's understandable to be afraid. It's understandable to be afraid to take action that isn't grounded in your higher purpose, to take action that's coming from a low vibration place. It's understandable. One of my very favorite parts in the Bible is when Jesus talks about how he is the vine, and actions that you take when not connected to him are going to wind up in death and destruction and so on. And that's one of my, I'll pull out the quote, it's beautiful. It's one of my, I read this like constantly. I am the real vine, and my Father is the gardener. He breaks off every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and he prunes every branch that does bear fruit, so that it will be clean and bear more fruit. You've been made clean already by the teaching I have given you. Remain united in me, and I will remain united in you. A branch cannot bear fruit by itself. It can only do so if it remains in the vine. In the same way, you cannot bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. Those who remain in me, and I in them, will bear much fruit, for you can do nothing without me. Those who do not remain in me are thrown out like a branch and dry up. Such branches are gathered up and thrown into the fire, where they are burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, then you will ask for anything you wish, and you shall have it. It's metaphorical, by the way. My Father's glory is shown by your bearing much fruit. And in this way, you become my disciples. I love you, just as the Father loves me. Remain in my love. If you obey me and my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's command and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My commandment is this: love one another, just as I love you. The greatest love you can have for your friends is to give your life for them. And you are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because servants do not know what their master is doing. Instead, I call you my friends, because I have told you everything I heard from my Father. You did not choose me, I chose you and appointed you to go and bear much fruit, the kind of fruit that endures. And so the Father will give you whatever you ask of him in my name. This then is what I command you: love one another. And that's something that often when I would read that brings tears to my eyes, because I've watched many of my friends who don't understand that destroy their lives or hurt their lives and hurt others. And it's this flurry of action that gets taken that in the end, when all is weighed out, is actually a net negative. Imagine that you live out your whole life for a net negative. You're just creating pain without knowing that you're doing it. You're adding your own resistance without knowing that you're doing it, taking all this action, creating attachments. And when we talk about placing God first, it's to prevent yourself from finding yourself just through money or just through ego or things like that. And so people that are stuck just in the physical and the material, and they talk about hustle culture and grind culture, these are things that they don't understand. They don't get that. And that's sad. And they're gonna have a lot of pain. So it's normal, it's completely normal to feel as though you shouldn't take action unless it's coming from the right place. And that's why you should continue to learn these things. And anybody who doesn't is gonna probably suffer or create suffering. And frankly, when you even do learning them, it's hard enough not to suffer or create suffering, even with all the tools. But what I'd say to you is that you've gotta start looking at the way that business people see things and getting a little bit outside your paradigm and challenging it and realizing that these things are not necessarily mutually exclusive, and there is a way to actually have both that feed into each other. There's ways to take action that connects you to flow, that connects you to that witnessing consciousness, and that challenges you to actually elevate yourself in this groundwork that you've done. You've got to get out and spar and put this to the test in a major, major way. And frankly, the more deeply that you take that test, the more that you also have to reconnect to that spiritual grounding. And if you do that and you double down and 100x down and 1000x down on that spiritual grounding as you are pushing yourself to the highest level that you can, what you're going to find is you are going to internalize these principles at 1000x higher level. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to just pop over there to wrap up the video, and then what we'll do is I'm going to give you a final challenge to internalize what it is that we've talked about here. I hope that you'll take it to heart, and I hope this video will truly, truly change your life. So let's pop over there to wrap the video. We're going to wrap up the challenge for you to go try immediately. And you can go try that and come back here and comment and let me know what you think. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up with a challenge. what I'd love you to do is to put down any spiritual text for 90 days. And again, this is a video not for everybody. It's for somebody who is a hardcore empath, who you feel that studying spiritual growth is actually stifling your advancement. Okay, you're kind of in a weird navel-gazing loop. So put down any spiritual text for 90 days. I don't want to hear that you're listening to anything inspirational. Okay, no inspirational memes, no card readings, no. Let's even just strip the meditation, I think. Let's just strip it, right? Why not, okay? Because you can live it, be present as you live. Strip down anything for about 90 days. And what I want you to do instead is start reading incredible business books. Start reading books about, guys like Gary Vaynerchuk that just say, hustle your face off. Or some great marketing teachers like Dan Kennedy is an incredible teacher who you have to dig a little bit to find him. John Carlton, Kick-Ass Copywriting Secrets of a Marketing Rebel. You got to dig hard to find that book. You got to dig real hard to find it. Completely, utterly mind-blowing. Study things like that. People like Seth Godin, I think, are incredible marketing teachers. Maybe look at some of my stuff about business and marketing. Anything around banking cash, okay? Or if you want to, make it something about getting six-pack abs. I haven't done that, but maybe I will. Six-pack abs, getting jacked, anything grounded in the physical. Maybe it's something about taking on huge projects, things that require huge amounts of ambition, and things that are very grounded in the physical world. So challenge yourself to just rebalance a little bit and just take some time to do that. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna actually go and spar now, okay? You don't need to keep training. You're gonna go and spar. And just go spar and kick some ass, and then go see how you feel looking back at this stuff in about 90 days. And if you're at a point where you're so afraid that you're gonna get trapped in your ego in that house of mirrors that you can't even go do that for 90 days, then how much progress have you really made at that point? I mean, maybe if you have some kind of major addiction to, the physical world and you just, if you go back into it, your life is ruined, then I guess maybe don't listen to this. But assuming that you're a reasonable person who's able to go and just live the principles that you've been studying and put them into practice and see how they apply in day-to-day life, what's gonna wind up happening is you're gonna be a much, much greater inspiration to other people that are maybe caught in their ego or caught in money or caught in the physical, caught in approval. You're gonna become an inspiration to them because they're gonna see your shining light, and what's gonna happen is you're gonna be thriving on all levels, not just internally. What winds up happening, in my view, when you fail to do this is that you become just as lost in the house of mirrors as the person who's stuck in ego or validation or money or attachments. You become just as lost in this house of mirrors as they do. And you wind up creating, in some ways, your own internally generated resistance. Just like somebody in their ego creates self-generated resistance or creates negative vibes or negative karma or negative blowback, whatever you call it, or they have a limited reality. You have your own limited reality. You have your own negative self-fulfilling prophecies. I mean, for most people that I know that are stuck in this, they go so deep into this inner exploration that, they choose to go into, hallucination states or into, retreats where they just go further into exploration. They'd rather do that than even do the most basic level of work in many cases. They can accomplish almost nothing. And the reason why is because working is actually tough. It's actually hard. And it would actually call on you to actually use a lot of the principles that you've learned. It would actually also call upon you to have discipline. It actually also call upon you to care enough to make the world better through your work. And what winds up happening is that a lot of the spiritual stuff becomes actually a drug to give you an excuse for not doing that. It's literally just a drug. It's a self-reinforcing drug. And you're not gonna be challenged. You're not gonna be challenged because if you look up different spiritual videos on social media, they're just gonna keep feeding you what you want in a silo, and you're in a silo. And I would encourage you again to start to challenge what it is that you know, challenge your different opinions, find contrarian opinions, and don't feel the need to go in there to prove them wrong either. Like, I'm gonna look at them to prove them wrong. Like, go in with an open mind. Expand your reality, expand what you're good at, keep being more and more of a pragmatic person, keep challenging yourself to become more competent, keep learning hard lessons, admit failures are often just totally suck and don't even feel the need to reframe them as part of your journey. Just say they suck and that you're gonna do better. Like, try getting out of that for a minute and actually just cranking it out and watch what happens. And what I think that you're gonna experience is that you're gonna actually come back into your inner growth phase with a huge amount of more depth, many more reference experiences to tie it to. And what's gonna wind up happening is you're gonna take that inner growth to higher and higher levels. Okay, somebody again like Master Frodo, when he eventually goes back to the village, he brings back that knowledge with him. can go back into those inner practices and take them thousands of times further because of these things that he has accomplished. And that's what I want for you. So that is why in every video that you'll ever see me put out, you're gonna see me talking about things about the inner place that you're coming from and why that's so important, but you're also gonna see me talking about things about competence, execution, hustling, work ethic, making cash, getting things done, and producing results, because I truly believe that both are equally important, and anybody who puts more emphasis on one than the other, that's okay in a phase, but ultimately in your life, it must be both. I believe that with all my heart. Came here to share that with you, and actually after this incredible event that we've been putting on here all week in Austin, I'm going to be going to bed and flying back to Los Angeles, and I think I'm going to probably be popping by Alaska next. So I love you very much, and I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that if you're somebody who I'm aiming to speak to, you took the message, you go use it. Talk to you soon.